Wasn't too long ago when Biden and China were cooperating. They had the Paris Accord signed. They were both pushing the green energy initiative. And during that time, I was screaming. I said, look, China's still building coal power plants. He's still using fossil fuels, and he's playing the West. He's playing America, saying, hey, I am pro green energy. I'm moving forward. He was playing them. But in the media's eye, it looked like China and America was partnering. China just wanted to sell lithium batteries. They own the largest cobalt mines and lithium mines in Africa and around the world. They own more green energy patents second to America. They are cashing in on green energy, and they just played the West. And then in a short time, all of a sudden, we're going to World War III with these guys. All of a sudden, they're pro-oil. They're signing these massive contracts with Russia, with Saudi Arabia. They're building a new oil refinery in China and importing most of that oil from these newfound contracts. He is playing the East now. The West was, I'm going to support you in this green energy move. And the East is, hey guys, I need your oil, and I know how to insulate you from America in getting the American powers off your necks. Russia, I'm going to save you because you're being sanctioned, and I'm going to buy your oil. I'm going to support you, and I'm going to prop you up during this time. I'm going to help remove the Western powers from you. He's playing both sides. I truly believe China is only interested in becoming rich. It's really simple. I mean, if you've ever worked with homeless people, me and my wife have worked with homeless people here in our city. And one thing I could tell you is that I know that at the end of the day, a homeless person only wants to be warm, fed, and numb from all their pains. So I know they're going to either drink alcohol or use meth or anything to numb them from their pains. I see them coming from a mile away. They could say whatever. They could try. It's amazing how people are so ignorant. I see it. Well, just like I could see the agenda behind a homeless person and what they're trying to get me to do, and they say all the right things to try to get me to give them money, feel sorry for them. China only cares about one thing. It is power. And the only way to do that is by selling America the green energy pipe dream, and is by solidifying these oil deals. Because without energy, America became a global superpower because of cheap, abundant energy. And China wants to become a global superpower. They want to be the most powerful country in the world. Xi Jinping only cares about power. And the only way to do that is with cheap, abundant energy. So while he was pushing the green energy pipe dream to the West, he knew this wasn't going to work. He said, hey, if you want to buy my cobalt materials, you want to buy my green energy technology, go ahead. Let's do this thing. I mean, he's playing both sides. He's brilliant. He's very intelligent. So all the while, America and the West is pushing this woke agenda, this green energy unicorn. China is building coal power plants. They're building refineries. They're brilliant. They're intelligent. They're very smart. And I see these such extreme, if you listen to Robert Kiyosaki, he brings in Mr. Gammett, and they're talking about the global reset. They're saying that the banking crisis isn't anywhere close to what happened at Silicon Valley is just a small crack in the system, and the whole thing is going to come crumbling down. Do you really believe that? The most powerful financial system just falling apart like that? Yes, it is a fiat currency, and yes, every currency historically has failed. But this is the first currency that is global. This is the world reserve currency. China knows that if the U.S. crashes, it's like a domino effect. It's going to destroy the world powers. Russia, Putin, Saudi Arabia, China, all of these countries know that if America gets taken out, they get taken out along with America, because we do have the world reserve currency. So a lot of people think Putin, China, Saudi Arabia, all these countries are trying to destroy the world reserve currency. But what they're doing is they're trying to insulate themselves. No different than if you go out and buy gold, buy a commodity, to try to insulate yourself from what you think is going to happen. And so it's not simple fundamentals anymore. Most of the issues we're seeing in the oil today, there's physical barrels of oil and there's paper barrels of oil. We're seeing the system being shorted. I believe it was 2 weeks ago. The system was being shorted worse than it was when it was the height of COVID lockdowns. That doesn't make any sense at all. All of these recession fears. I mean, on one extreme, we're having recession fears. On another extreme, they're saying the federal interest rate hikes are going to stop, and all of a sudden the economy is going to explode. I mean, we've got two extremes going on. We don't believe what the White House is saying, but we believe what these YouTube channels, Robert Kiyosaki and some of these other channels that people are talking about how we're going to have World War III and the currency is going to crash and BRICS is going to bypass the currency and their currency is going to be the new world reserve currency. I mean, you have so much news going on. Here's what I think is going to happen. China has no interest in going to World War III. They're not ready to go to World War III. Nobody is ready for World War III. This is a completely different war. China is waging economic warfare. But for instance, if Russia or China was to send an EMP over America, knocking out all of the electricity of America, the economy, the stock market would crash, and it would be a domino effect. It would destroy China's economy. It would destroy the Russian economy. It would destroy the Saudi economy. Do you think that they would do something like that in that kind of extreme? It's a process. China's preparing to become a superpower. They're not preparing for global demise. If China was preparing for a global demise, if he was planning to drop a nuclear bomb in America, why would he be setting up for China to be using more oil? I mean, if China planned that its economy was going to shrink, would he be signing these massive contracts with Russia, with Saudi Arabia to buy even more oil? I mean, right now, China has an oil glut. They have yet to truly come off this COVID cycle. I mean, they're still nowhere close to where they could be if he just ripped the red tape and said, let's go economy. I believe that that's his plan. And I believe he's playing the West to sell green energy. He's already solidified all those relationships. Now he's showing his allegiance to Russia, to Putin, to Saudi Arabia. Because originally China was trying to get Saudi Arabia to buy and sell oil in the yuan. Well, they wouldn't do it. They disagreed. Russia would never do it. So China started making moves to show his allegiance, his anti-Western allegiance. And Russia got into a position with this Ukraine war. He can't continue to fund this Ukraine war, especially if America is backing Ukraine and other countries. So Putin was getting strapped for cash. He saw the writing on the wall. So he needed another superpower to back him. And the only way this whole thing works is unless China is in control. China wants their currency to be a world reserve currency. That's the only way they could print like America has, so they could build their economy, so they could build their military. When China builds a military, they have to spend money, but they do not have the fiat currency power that we do. We're the only country in the world that can do that. And the only way China could have that power, and that's the only thing they want is power, but they can't do it without cheap, abundant energy, and they can't do it unless their currency becomes a world reserve currency. And the only way to do that is to get Saudi Arabia and Russia in the back pocket of Xi Jinping, and he played them. He is two-faced. I wouldn't believe anything he says. Of course, he wants the world to think that he's going to World War III because that earns the respect of Putin. It earns the respect of the East. And so Xi Jinping's bait was, listen, every time you guys make a move that America disagrees with, you get sanctioned. I have a solution to your problem. Let's get off the SWIFT system. Let's get off the USD. Here's how you can do that. They're all buying into this thing. Now, here's what you need to understand about the price of crude. Oil is the highest it's been all year. If you look at demand in the East, most of that demand is coming from the East. Brazil's demand is strong and it's growing. India's demand is strong and is growing. Africa, all of these other countries in the East, that's where we're seeing growth. And if you look at the Western growth, there is some growth. We're not seeing the decrease like everybody expected. And this green energy unicorn is going to take trillions and trillions of dollars. Where is that money going to come from? The American global economy is not crashing, but it's not increasing either. They can't just keep printing money. They know that. And with the federal interest rate hikes, where is that capital going to come from? There's less of it. They're reducing the amount of capital. They need that capital in order to buy more green energy, but they're at a standstill right now. They've spent trillions and trillions of dollars just to find out that fossil fuels is the leading commodity. It's the leading energy producing machine that green energy can't even come close to touching. We're seeing all the problems that is associated to trying to go green. We're seeing all the problems. We saw it in Sri Lanka. We saw it in Germany. And people aren't buying into this woke agenda anymore. African powers, Russia, all of these countries are speaking out against the Western propaganda machine. It's a system that tries to brainwash the masses. I've seen it over and over again in fossil fuels. They make it seem like demand is shrinking. Green energy is taking over. We're by such and such date, we are going to be 100% electric vehicles and no more gas. That is so far from the truth. There's been some recent polls saying that I'm never going to buy a green electric car. That is much higher than those that are pro-electric car. See, the machine is pushing propaganda down your throat. I mean, think about it. The Western machine says that we're going green, and if you don't get on board, you're going to be left behind. As where China is building an infrastructure set up to burn more fossil fuels. So is Brazil. So is Africa, India. All of these other countries are saying to hell with you, Western powers. And the Western powers, I mean, it's a portion of the world's economy. It's a portion of the demand. But the demand for oil in the East is growing substantially. We're going to have a population of 9 billion. I mean, we're at 8 billion people. We're going to have a population of 9 billion. Those other billion people are going to want oil. They're not going to want green energy. These people, these other countries are smart. They don't just follow. They're paying attention. As where Western, they seem to be just sheep, and they don't even pay attention that they're being led to the slaughter. I'm telling you right now, the Eastern Africa, South America, all these countries, they're not woke. They want the cheapest energy that's available, and that is oil. That is fossil fuels. So I'm telling you what I foresee happening. I believe that we're going to see even more inflation. I don't think we're going to see a major crash like people are thinking. Maybe we'll see a recession in America, but I don't think it's going to be as devastating as it was in 2008, 2009, because they've been crying recession, and the markets have been adjusting based upon the recession fears. We already went through COVID. We already had a crash. It was COVID, and then the economy adjusted. I mean, if we didn't have COVID and we didn't have all this warning about recession, and then all of a sudden a bubble bursted, that caused a financial crash. The markets have been adjusting to a recession for a long time now. We made it out of COVID, and inflation. I mean, it's not like it wasn't an overnight thing that the price of everything just went up overnight. I mean, we've seen it increase, but it's been an adjustment. Do I think we could fix the problem that we're having with the U.S. dollar? No, it's a fiat currency. It's based on debt. Money is created from lending. A bank gets $1,000 and then they lend out $10,000. It's just a number in a computer. So it's really simple, guys. Paper money is losing value, but commodities is price adjusted based on inflation. The price of a barrel of crude is inflation adjusted. So if inflation gets worse, the price of a barrel of crude is going to go up. It's that simple, guys. And so a lot of the things that you're hearing on the right, the left, extremism, basic news, and everything, there's a tremendous amount of extreme, there's a tremendous amount of skepticism, and that's what's pushing the price of crude down. That's what's causing them to short sell. But it's putting us in a position to where it's putting OPEC in power. OPEC has more control of a price of a barrel of oil simply because of the underinvestment in oil. During the time that we had an oil glut because of the shale boom, OPEC had no control. They could reduce output and it didn't affect the barrel of oil, price of crude. They have more control today than they ever have before. You see demand growing, and we're not investing in tomorrow's oil demand. This may, and if you look at OPEC's most recent report, they're saying by the end of the year, we're going to be at 102 million barrel a day demand. Where's that oil going to come from? Because we're on the decline. Shell is on the decline. Russia's on the decline. OPEC is on the decline. There's only, I believe that there's only two countries that have the ability to increase oil output. Guyana and I forget the other one. But the spare energy capacity just isn't there. We had a good run. It was fun. America had cheap, abundant energy, which is why we are a global superpower. You couldn't have done it without cheap, abundant energy. You can't grow without it. And then we talked Saudi Arabia into selling crude in the U.S. dollar. A barrel of oil is pegged to the U.S. dollar. And so our currency became the world reserve currency. And now you got all of these countries that are ditching the dollar and they want to sell their oil in another currency because they're tired of Western powers dictating the price of a barrel of oil. They're tired of that control. And so in time, the moves that they're making, look, OPEC controls oil prices. OPEC cares about higher oil prices more than any other country. So where do you think oil prices are going to go? The Western power, they're woke. They're anti-fossil fuels. They're passing laws to prevent people from investing in oil development. If you follow Shark Tank, Mr. Wonderful, he went on Fox News and he said, oil demand is growing. I'm going to build an oil refinery here in America. He's intelligent. That guy, he has become very rich because he takes advantage of situations and brings a solution. He's building an oil refinery. China is building an oil refinery. You don't build an oil refinery unless you know that demand is going to be high for the product. Guys, I'm here to tell you, I've never been more excited about crude oil than now. What's going to happen here in the next 6 months to the year that the woke agenda continues to mature and the supply problem only gets worse. OPEC has been crying for years, giving us warning, and nobody is heeding the advice because the woke agenda is not going to change its ways. They think that this Titanic will never sink. In the pride of man, they're drunk on their own wisdom, and that's going to be their demise. Pride is the number one reason why people fall. I'm not saying that we're not going to have a recession. I'm not saying that the U.S. dollar isn't going to crash, but you got to think about the consequences. If the U.S. dollar crashes, it's going to be a domino effect and destroy every economy in the world. You're going to see a global depression in that event. And gold isn't going to save you. If you have a bunch of gold and the global reserve currency crashes, you are going to have mass mayhem. You're going to walk around with a pocket full of gold. You're going to be dead. They will kill you for your gold. That would be an extreme situation. What I see is inflation. And the beauty of crude oil is that it's a global economy. American demand might reduce because of a recession, but then you got Brazil's demand increasing. You got India's demand increasing. You got all of these emerging markets increasing. I mean, we're such a small, the amount of people that rely on fossil fuels at the level that we do here in the West doesn't compare. The rest of the world, some parts of the world, they only have a refrigerator. They don't even have a car. They don't even have a moped. They don't use gasoline, and they want to use it, and they're starting to. If the rest of the world used as much oil as America did, the demand for oil would be 1 billion barrels a day. Right now, we're at 100 million. We would be at 1 billion barrel a day demand if the rest of the world was like America. Now, I don't think that's ever going to happen. But what if a small percentage of the world became like America? Now we're talking about 110 million barrel a day demand. How does a growing demand get fulfilled if the output is decreasing? If the supply is decreasing and they're not investing in tomorrow's supply, how are we going to fulfill tomorrow's demand? It's impossible. Guys, don't you see the writing on the wall? China has no interest in destroying the American economy, but they do want to be powerful. They do want control. And China is getting Russia and Saudi Arabia and OPEC and all these countries in his back pocket. And then he's going to be the middleman for oil for the Western powers, because they all want the same thing. They do not want to be controlled by the West. They don't want to be sanctioned by the West. And so if they force the West, we're going to cut you off from oil unless you remove this sanction from Russia or this sanction from Iran or whatever they want to say or whatever they want to do. Because China is being sanctioned, especially with what he's doing in Taiwan. But if he has control of oil and he cuts America off from oil, it would wreck our economy. It would force us to come to the negotiation table. The days of us sanctioning and controlling other countries are coming to an end with these new relationships forming. It is the most powerful relationship in the world to form relationships that control half of the world's oil supply. And China is preparing to become a global superpower. And so the way I am insulated from all this is when oil is produced, its value is priced at what it is when it is born. And if a barrel of oil is produced today, I'm going to get 80 something dollars per a barrel. But if 3 years from now that well's still producing and inflation is twice as bad as it was before, and China's global control becomes even greater, and in the East curbs output to the West, that barrel of oil is going to be worth twice as much. And so that's the difference between a commodity and pieces of paper in a bank. So your pieces of paper in the bank is not safe. Now, I don't want to be I don't want to be an alarmist. Do I think that your money is going to be taken away from you and it's going to be worth nothing? No, I do not. Again, I don't support this quick knee-jerk reaction, extreme, the USD is going to crash. Our banking system is in every country except for 2, North Korea and Cuba. I seriously doubt the most powerful global currency is going to just fall apart overnight. I believe that we have at least 10 more years. I sound like Biden, we still need you for 10 more years, oil. But I mean, the global reserve currency is powerful. And you got to think about it. We have at least 10 more years of having trust in the banking system, trust in the USD. But I'm very confident that we're going to see even more inflation. And I believe that the Fed is trying to quickly fix the inflation problem before the next election. Because if you're still racking up rates during an election, you're going to have a Republican in office in a half second. So they have no choice but to try to get a booming economy before this next election cycle. So, all right, guys, I'm Sean Pruitt, president of Kingdom Exploration. If you like this channel, please subscribe, and we'll talk soon. Thanks.